Hello and welcome to Elegance Lab. My name is Libby Hoffman, and I want to tap you into some curiosity. So I want you to think about a moment when you were a child that you thought this is the way it is, and then you were disrupted in that thought about how it actually was. I'll give you a quick example. My older siblings were born in Japan, lived in Japan. And I told my older sister, it's a good thing you weren't born there, because if you were born there, you would have come out Japanese and we wouldn't look alike. And she didn't give me the full detail version, but she let me know that's not how it worked, genetics. Another example is people used to say that things went down the wrong pipe. So I had literal images of pipes moving down our throats, because that makes sense, right? And eventually I realized, yeah, it's not what it was. I want you to give yourself some grace, because if you've landed on this channel, you're likely working in a field or in a space within human development work in some way. And you hold a deep inner knowing that you are working on something that the future is going to understand. And yet right now, we don't have the words for it. Or we call it something else entirely. Or we have a word for it and we call it that, but we're belittling it or reducing it or seeing it in one context, but missing the ways that it actually could be used. I can speak to each of these things because I've experienced all of them over the last decade. And I myself sat in a lot of discomfort. I am uncomfortable a lot of the time. And the beauty of being with that discomfort is really beginning to honor and own that you're doing something different. And there's this dance between sanity and insanity as a creative being, as you grapple with whether you are the one person in tune with reality or completely out of tune with it. And there's a movement between the world as is, not yet functioning in the way that this creative expression you have can see it, while also being able to envision the world functioning with this creative endeavor, and so continuing to take action on it. So I'm someone who is, I'm Libby, and I'm a trained user experience designer. And initially, people began paying me to do consulting work, essentially, but I worked in an educational consulting space. And what happened is it wasn't easy to pitch what I was doing. So I was just called a graphic designer. And I knew this wasn't right. And the people who worked and hired me knew that wasn't the right title, but there wasn't really another word for what I was doing. And I eventually got trained in coaching. And as I began working as a coach, I was like, wait, people pay me just to ask these questions. This is what I'm always doing all the time as a designer. I'm breaking open, I'm breaking apart. I'm creating space for new knowledge. I'm, helping create vision amongst these polarized or different fragmented parts of the project. I'm extending the lifeline of the thing. I'm connecting the pieces of it. And excuse me, it wasn't really until I got reconnected with embodiment work. So I always was a fitness instructor, but really began getting into Iyengar yoga, which was a style of yoga that slowed down all of yoga and had you just do a move. So I was accustomed to, like here in the West, doing vinyasa, where you're just moving through the flow, one breath, one movement. And in an Iyengar studio, I had the privilege of studying in India, and the teachers would come around and pause the whole class and say, everyone come here, let's gather around the student. We're going to break down all the ways this movement can look. And sometimes in a 1-2 hour class, we would do 5 moves the whole class and just break things down. This completely changed the way that I'd been doing this sport as I saw it at the time, because I began to activate and feel all these different parts of my body that I didn't even know were there. And it was at this time that I began to realize, oh, this is the power of conscious design, conscious collaboration work, is that we're activating all these pieces that we didn't know. And so the combination of design, the combination of fitness and movement, the combination with coaching and then embodied coaching, which is really emotional release through movement, began to let me see that in the same way, to activate and work with the human body, we could work with a doctor, we could work with a nervous system somatic healer, we could work with a physical therapist if we were healing from an actual pain point. We could work with a fitness coach if we were actually developing strength and muscle. And we could work with all of those people and add a nutritionist and, a specialist for any particular ailment. And every single one would be relevant. No one would lose relevance because of that, because that's just how complex the human body is and how complex the human body is when we are putting it to work in different things. This is what is possible, capable, and needed when it comes to the collective human body, when it comes to the ways that we do organizational work, the ways that we work together as people, the ways that we work on political and social change, the ways that we work on spiritual development within community, the ways that we work on global work and cross-cultural work. All of these are different avenues for connecting, reconnecting, refusing different parts of the body. And this work is actually brand new in the world in some ways, because the initial ways in which we've gotten to know each other as people is through a colonizer and colonized relationship, a militant relationship, an economic relationship. And we are looking for those of us who are building greater connectivity, greater justice, greater love in the world. We are looking at the ways that these relationships we are forming can come in creative ways, in humane ways, in co-developing ways, co-creative ways, co-visionary ways, in elevated ways. I should say that I also have a history in international development. So what I love, what brings me so much joy, like relief and joy in speaking this, is that for years I tried to reduce the work that I was doing to fit into an existing structure. And eventually, between my coaching work and my design work and my body work and studying the history of religion and studying the Marxist and different political philosophical thought on the ways that we connect, and looking at and connecting with amazing thinkers who are both working on deconstructive and creative work, I began to recognize that the creative need at this time for visionary work is so great. And that what I'm bringing to the table is this mix of pieces. So let me give an offering of what it would look like to work with the structure that I've created, Elegance Lab. Elegance Lab is an acknowledgement that research, insight, discipline, structure, as well as intuition, creative thinking, collaboration, and energetic work are both going to be needed to create new pathways in the world. And elegance implies the artistry of this, and lab implies the science of it. With that, I work with a variety of organizations, groups, and individuals who are bringing forth something new into the world. The very first thing that I work with people on is embodiment, because embodiment is about reconnecting mind and body and ensuring that we are actually working from a more grounded place. The second thing that I work with is connection, attention. This is you'll hear a lot in my work as a coach as well, outside of my work in Elegance Lab, this emphasis on choice, this attention to values. So with connection, we're looking at who your organization is intentionally connecting with. Everything is inherently interconnected in the world, but can we get you connected to the thing that is most lighting up this space, this organization, so that it can then make the connections that it needs based on its core connective point. So we're starting with embodiment and awareness. We're moving into connection and relationship. And this, in a tangible way, is going to end up looking like your business relationships, your funders, your investors. Who's the network of support here that allows your living vision to be embodied? But it cannot be embodied if the body doesn't exist of it, but it needs the vision to extend and grow the body. The next thing is creativity, and my creative process involves a level of space creating, creative destruction, and creativity. So this is going to be actually how this unit works with ideas and moves things along over time, gives birth to new ideas, has a process of moving in and moving out. And then the final thing is emergence. And emergence is really creating that larger structural governance so that emergent process can happen. What I mean by that is you can imagine if Libby, the creative thinker, has a daily practice of being creative and making new things online, but she's working in an environment where she can only serve, 10 people a month for the next 10 years. That is not an environment where emergence is going to, where the creative passion is going to be able to be amplified. The emergent structure, the setup in place within my organizational process is going to make it such that I can grow, and not just grow exponentially, but grow in a cyclical, spiraling way that will keep me connected to my goals and keep me embodied with myself. This is ultimately the way that I believe larger scale change in the world will also have to work. And of course, there is much nuance and layers within there, but primarily we must be connected to the body of self, or the body of the organization. What resources are there? How is it breathing? What's keeping its basic structure? Then the life force of the organization. This is the connection piece. This is the vision. This is the principles. This is the values. And the impetus and methodology for staying connected. The creative piece, the ideas, what it's bringing forth, and the emergent kind of governance or structure to help take it forward. If you would like to work with me, I work with individuals and organizations on a 3-month basis or longer, but we begin with 3 months of bi-weekly coaching and design calls, where we'll do a mix of surfacing the intelligence, the logic, the beauty, the artistry, the structure, create the kind of scientific space, the ways in which you want to test and grow a product or experience that you are creating, and then actually take action on it, have a couple of cycles of learning and growth within there, and essentially consciously evolve as an organization to your next step so that you can have more of you in the world.